So we have new variants, too much cash printed, supply chain issues, and even ABBA are going back on tour. Surely this is an end of days scenario. We should sell every stock we own, stock up on baked beans, and run for the hills. Or should you stand your ground and hold strong? In this video, I'm going to go through how I am preparing for the inevitable, the stock market crash that is coming. You asked for it, I'm providing it. This is how I am preparing for the inevitable implosion of the stock market. Now, as always, before the doom and gloom starts, it could be the last chance you ever get if the world ends to smash that like button blue. And if you want to sign up on eToro, do so via the link on the pinned comment, deposit, make a trade. We have a chat room there, you get lifetime access, and you can see where we're all hiding at. So variants have been found and are moving around the world, and this surely is the new norm. We've seen markets crap themselves on new variant worries. We've also seen markets bounce back from it. But will this bounce just continue happening? And eventually, will you just continue seeing new all-time highs in the S&P 500? But then if you throw in that there's been copious amounts of US dollars printed, in fact, check this out for a statistic. If you gathered every single US dollar on planet Earth, put them in a pile, 40% of them have been printed in little over the last 12 months alone. That's how much the US government has been printing, and it seems like they're continuing to print more. But of course, printing 40% of your own national currency is definitely not a bubble, right? But even with all this printing, it's okay, because even though you've got loads of cash extra on the table, you can't buy anything with it, because we also have supply chain issues. Whether you want to buy coal, timber, or oil, there's a big supply chain shortage, and prices are skyrocketing because of this supply chain. So it doesn't even matter that you've got money, because you can't bloody spend it. Right now you have to sell a kidney to fill up your dirty, polluting planet killer, and also if you want to buy a Louis Vuitton bag for your missus at Christmas, well, you just can't. Trust me, I know. Wherever you seem to turn, there is a lot of uncertainty and ways the market could indeed crash. And in fact, that crash could be imminent any day. But there is one thing I haven't talked about, and it's the key reason why I feel this crash will be one of the worst crashes in history, and that is Robinhood users. And I know that's very generic, and if you're a Robinhood user, don't take it personally, but it's never been easier to open an account and YOLO into any stock. We're in a world where people are using record amounts, not just Robinhood users, but hedge funds, everybody is using record amounts of leverage. We have a market where people are buying currencies, cryptocurrencies, that are literal memes and creating $1 billion of value. We are in a definite bubble in literally every market you look at. To be honest, I've just finished a book called The .con by John Cassidy. I strongly suggest you go and read it. But we are in a sort of market where the Great Recession, the Great Depression in the 30s has had a baby somehow with the .com bubble. And that's the current market in 2021, 2022, and if we live long enough, 2023. Now, all this doom and gloom and FUD is definitely not something people are going to like to hear, but I think you can prepare. In fact, I'm excited. Really, honestly, I'm super excited to see the market crash. If you read about Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger, or any legendary investor, the best time to invest is in a crash. When people don't want stocks, they don't want property, and it's cheap. That's the best time to buy, not at all-time highs. Warren Buffett, probably his most famous quote is, "Be greedy when people are fearful, be fearful when people are greedy." I've just told you we've got record amounts of leverage. Do you think people are fearful or greedy? And you see, the reason why I'm excited for this is I've been preparing for this for about a year or so, maybe even a bit longer if you go on how long I've been buying gold, which is about 5 years. Now, that is one of the things. I'll talk more on that in a second. But if you are preparing, and I mean even in equities in the stock market, you can actually make a lot of money, and more so, save yourself from throwing yourself off a bloody building. But the first thing I want to address right here is cryptocurrency. A lot of people are running to cryptocurrency as a hedge against the US dollar, which it may well be a hedge against the US dollar. But I feel it's a danger if the market does crash. You can see that last week, the stock market fell, and so did cryptocurrency. I think we've got bond rates coming up soon, which could crash the stock market in itself, let's be honest. But I think that there is a big problem with cryptocurrency. I've mentioned it many times on the channel. We've got nations around the world that have literally invaded other countries to protect their own currency. US being one of them, by the way. And I'm not going to get into political reasons why they did it, but you've got countries around the world, big countries, that will invade other countries to get its industries going, and of course, to prop their own governmental power which is their currency. Now, I just told you that the US had just printed 40%, more than that probably by now, of all the US dollars in circulation in the last 12 bloody months. That's a crazy statistic. Now, that means that the US have a big inflation problem. Now, you've got to think logically as if you were a US personnel in government. Would you allow people to flock to an alternative currency, which would thus make your currency even more worthless? Or you could ban this currency that lives outside your nation and heavily tax it, or even, like China did, make it damn illegal. Now, I know there's going to be some crypto expert watching this saying this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Now, to be clear, I was mining Ethereum in 2017. I sold out when its first run happened, and I haven't mined since. To be clear, I know quite a decent amount about blockchain. I understand why it works, I understand its need, and I understand why it's popular. But if you think that a government will not outright ban it, you are insane. If you go back to 1934, Roosevelt passed a law making it illegal to hold gold. In fact, if you had gold bullions, they would confiscate them from you, pay you a very highly discounted price, and take the gold for themselves. Once this law was fully in floor, they raised the prices again of gold because they already held it, and it helped get the economy back on track. If you think they could not do something similar with a cryptocurrency, you are absolutely insane. Not to mention if they heavily tax an offshore currency, which I feel is probably the way they'll go. And if they did say to people like Elon Musk or other big holders of Bitcoin, we're going to tax you 80% of your profits, or you go to jail, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to paper hand the shit out of it, and that's going to in turn crash the price to the downside. We know when whales sell cryptocurrency, there's a big move to the downside, and if the US government hypertax offshore assets, which they can clearly do, we know this from FATCA as well, then it could be the end of cryptocurrency. So I don't see that as being a safe haven. I see that as being a speculative play, but if it works out, best of luck to you. I feel like now a lot of people have jumped into cryptocurrency with the mentality of this is a hedge against the world. We hate the US government, which is cool. You have that opinion, that's fine. But it's simply put, if they pass a law, you do not follow the law, you go to jail, and people will paper hand it. It's that simple. So what am I doing? Well, I just mentioned about the gold ban. I'm buying gold. That's one of the things I'm doing. I've been buying physical gold for a hell of a long time. Because first thing, it's a good paperweight on your desk. But second thing, it's a good investment. Gold will do well in a crash, but I am lucky enough not to live in the US. I live in Europe, and I don't think there's even a way they can ban gold because there's so many nations inside the EU. But if they did, then I'm lucky enough that I've been acquiring it over a long time. I also buy gold ETFs, tickers like GLD, which is the SPDR gold ticker, and there's several others that I buy as well. Another way I've been hedging as well, if you want to hedge against the US currency itself, I've been buying Japanese yen, which is sort of proven to be a safe haven currency over the long term. But I want to stress here, my thoughts and thesis is not to make double my money with gold. Although I think gold will do well in a market crash, I think that's a no-brainer. But my thing is here is, I'm not having exposure to the market, and I'm not necessarily having just cash sat around. Although I see all of these assets as cash, I see them as just sitting there making me a little tiny return while I wait for the inevitable crash. Now that crash could come in 2028, we don't know. But in the meantime, I'm just going to make a couple of percent a year. Maybe even I'll lose to inflation on some of them. That's fine. It's better than having physical cash in my opinion. But when the market does crash and correct 20-30%, I will slowly start buying in with this part of the portfolio. Now that is not my whole portfolio. It's about 30-40% of my portfolio. The rest is invested in stocks, and this is the biggest way I'm preparing for a stock market crash. If I bought Apple today, or Zoom, or any other tech company that seems to be doing quite well, okay, and I'm talking about quite well in terms of revenue growth, not necessarily in the stock price. If I bought them today, am I buying them at a discount, fair value, or overvalued? I don't think many of you would sit there and say Apple, on balance sheet paper alone, is undervalued. I mean, it's a bloody huge company. But the point is in a market crash, the fear will come in, and I'd like to buy Apple at a much cheaper price. So I'm not buying Apple. I'm buying companies that are already undervalued or in a crash sort of scenario. Like, it's no secret I like Alibaba. Now, there is political risks with China. I've done them in that video. I'm not going to go into it here. But on cash flows, revenues, and every other logical approach, Alibaba is already undervalued. Now, if a market crash did happen, Alibaba probably will fall. But how much? because I'm already buying it at a discount. So that means I'm getting an even bigger discount if it did fall, provided the overall revenues and people are still buying from Alibaba's e-commerce, their banking, their internet, their finance arms, everything is still operating. It's just a discount. But if I'm buying a company like Twitter or Zoom that are overvalued and have very bad revenues in terms of market cap, then I'm expecting a lot of pain to come. Now, in the meantime, I could make 5x my money before the crash happens. You need to weigh that decision up yourself. But if you're buying value stocks, you're actually, without knowing it, preparing for a crash. Because if that stock is 20% under its market value in your eyes, and it falls another 20%, it's nothing more than a buying opportunity. But if you buy Apple, that's overvalued 20%, and it falls 30%, well, you're just down on your investment. So just to summarize that point, if you are buying a good business at a good value, don't panic. You should be fine. But if you're using leverage, or if you're buying a company that is already fair valued or overvalued, you can expect some unrealized pain. And it will come. Eventually the market will correct and crash. It's a fact. It's coming. Start preparing for it today. Now, I know this is a bit of a doom and gloom video, and I hope it genuinely helped someone, because in the last video I did on the market crash, I asked if you wanted to see what my approach is. And my approach is very simply summarized: buy value stocks, have cash sat on reserve, and that cash is in the form of gold, bonds, and also currency, but have that sat there that I am willing to sell at any point of any day to buy a company that I feel is good value. I never have physical cash in US dollar form sat around, or very little. I buy things that I think are going to at least go up in value if a crash did happen. That way I win twice. If you found this video beneficial, drop the code word down below, which is panic buy. And if you want to see when the perfect time to sell a stock is, it might actually help you. It's quite related. Go and check that video out up there, because I go through some of the thoughts that might help you make a decision to lower your risk in the stock market. Be safe. I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Peace.